Forbidden Bonds, the story of Elena and Sofie. Elena and Sofie were two sides of the same coin, or so everyone in Briar would like to say. They weren't twins, but they might as well have been. Identical enough to confuse people at a glance. The same soft brown eyes, the same waves of chestnut hair that cascaded down their backs, the same quiet smile that could charm anyone. But they were different. Elena was the soft one, the dreamer. She spent most of her time buried in books, sketching in her notebooks, or daydreaming about cities far from their sleepy town. Sofie was the wild spark, loud, impulsive, and fearless. Where Elena hesitated, Sofie leapt, dragging her sister along behind her like she was trying to share her fire. Their bond had always been tight, almost too tight. Ever since they were kids, people would tease, "Y'all are practically glued together," and the girls would laugh, knowing it was true. But something changed. It was subtle at first, like smoke rising before a fire catches. It started one summer, when their parents were gone more than usual. Late shifts, weekend trips, leaving the girls alone in their creaky house on the edge of town. The air felt heavy that summer, thick and sticky, like it was holding a secret. Elena began noticing the little things. The way Sofie would sit close, her bare shoulder brushing against Elena's arm when they sat on the porch swing at night. How her gaze lingered longer than it should when Elena smiled, like she was memorizing her face. One evening, the tension cracked open. The house was quiet except for the hum of the box fan rattling in the living room window. Sofie lay sprawled across the couch, her tank top clinging to her skin, the soft glow of the TV flickering across her face. Elena sat on the floor with her back against the couch, flipping through a book she wasn't really reading. "You ever think we're not like other people?" Sofie said suddenly, her voice low but clear. Elena froze. "What do you mean?" Sofie shifted, leaning over the edge of the couch, her face just above Elena's shoulder. "Us, you and me, the way we are together." Elena's breath caught, her heart hammering. She didn't answer, couldn't. Sophie's fingers brushed Elena's arm, soft and deliberate. "I think about you all the time, Lainey," she whispered, "and not the way I'm supposed to." Elena turned to look at her, and that was it. The space between them disappeared. Sofie leaned down and kissed her, tentative at first, like she was afraid Elena would pull away. But Elena didn't. Instead, she kissed her back, and it was like the rest of the world melted away. For the first time, Elena stopped thinking about what was right, what was wrong, what people would say, and let herself feel. Sophie's hand slid down Elena's arm, sending shivers across her skin. The kiss deepened, their breaths heavy and uneven, like they'd been waiting for this moment their whole lives. That night, they ended up tangled together on Elena's bed, the sheets twisted around them. Sophie's fingers traced lazy circles on Elena's bare shoulder as they whispered in the dark. "Does it scare you?" Elena asked softly, her voice barely above a whisper. Sofie shook her head, pressing a kiss to Elena's hair. "No, it feels like it's supposed to be this way, like it's always been this way." From that night on, everything was different. The stolen moments became their lifeline. Sofie would sneak into Elena's room late at night, crawling under the sheets, her hands finding Elena in the dark. They shared kisses behind the barn, where the summer grass grew tall enough to hide them. Their hands would brush under the dinner table, and they'd sneak looks when no one was watching, both of them biting back smiles. The secrecy made it electric. Every glance, every touch, every moment alone felt like a stolen treasure. But the weight of it was crushing, too. The nights they weren't together, Elena lay awake in bed, her skin still tingling where Sofie had touched her. She hated the silence, hated pretending during the day like everything was normal. Sofie, on the other hand, was bold, almost reckless. One afternoon, as they sat in the back of their old pickup truck parked near the woods, Sofie leaned in and kissed Elena without warning. Elena gasped and pulled back, her heart pounding. "Sofie, someone could see." "I don't care," Sofie said stubbornly, brushing Elena's hair from her face. "Why do we have to hide? It's not wrong. It's us." But Elena knew it wasn't that simple. The truth was, their love wasn't something the world would ever accept. They lived in a small town where people whispered about anything that didn't fit their tidy little boxes. And this would blow those boxes to pieces. it all fell apart one night. Their mother walked into Sophie's room unannounced and froze in the doorway. Elena was lying on the bed, Sophie curled up beside her, their arms wrapped around each other like they were afraid to let go. The look on their mother's face, shock, disgust, confusion, burned itself into Elena's mind. "What's going on here?" their mother demanded, her voice shaking. Neither of them spoke. Sophie sat up, her arm instinctively shielding Elena. "It's not what you think." But it didn't matter what they said. The damage was done. The next few days were hell. Their parents wouldn't look at them, wouldn't talk to them except to say, "This stops now." Sophie's room was locked at night. They weren't allowed to be alone together. It didn't work. Late one night, Sophie climbed through the window into Elena's room, her face flushed with tears and anger. "We can't stay here, Leni. We have to go." Elena hesitated, but when she looked into Sophie's eyes, saw the fear, the love, the desperation, she knew there was no other choice. They left Briarwood that night with nothing but a couple of bags and a tank of gas. As they sped down the empty highway, the town fading behind them, Elena stared out at the dark horizon. "Do you think we'll be okay?" she asked softly. Sophie reached over, taking Elena's hand and holding it tight. "As long as I've got you, we'll figure it out." The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time, it felt like freedom. Love doesn't always fit the rules we're taught to follow. For Sophie and Elena, their bond was something the world couldn't understand, something they had to fight for. Was their love wrong? Or was it simply real? Sometimes the hardest choices lead us to the most honest parts of ourselves. What do you think? Could their story have ended any other way? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more silent confessions.